Good morning, everyone. My name is Anay Kamath, and I'm currently working as Mobile Practice Lead at Equal Experts Pune. On behalf of Equal Experts and the team of Expert Talks, I would like to thank you for taking the time today from your weekend and joining us for this session. Thank you very much. At Equal Experts, we truly believe in making software better. We are a global network of talented and experienced software consultants who specialize in agile delivery. And as of now, the network is spread across UK, India, South Africa, Portugal, Canada, Germany, US, and Australia. I hope I got all right. Well, better software doesn't just come from better practices and tools, right? It also comes from our ability to continuously learn. We believe that learning happens when we collaborate and share our knowledge. Expert Talks is one such attempt from us to share our experiences with the community and also learn from the feedback that we get. Well, this is going to be an informal and interactive session. So don't forget to continuously send your feedback and questions to us through the chat feature. And if you're sending a question, please make sure you are using the Q&A feature in the Zoom screen. You can see that there is a Q&A button below, right? Some of those questions will be addressed during the talk if they are simple enough. Most of the questions would be taken towards the end when we'll be having a fishbowl session. During a fishbowl session, we would be having a panel which would answer your questions, and this panel is not fixed. So if any one of you is interested to be a part of a panel and answer a particular question, do raise your hand and we'll add you as a panel, right? With this, let me request my friend and a product expert at Equal Expert, Mr. Munish Malik, to tell us how to ideate, build, and validate business idea in 5 days for real. All set, Munish?
Cool. Thank you, Anay. Hi, everyone. Well, to begin with, firstly, I hope you and your families are keeping healthy. My name is Munish Malik. As Anay mentioned, I'm a senior product manager with Equal Experts. And I'm here to share my experience on how can we ideate, build, and validate business ideas in 5 days. Yes, it is for real. It can happen. We've done it. And one of the techniques to do it is through a design sprint. Thanks to the COVID world in which we are at the moment, like most of the other things, even design sprint has gone remote. Something that used to be very collaborative in the office space, we are able to now do it remotely as well. So I'll try to share my experience on, how through a design sprint that we conducted remotely, we've been able to ideate, build, and validate an idea and test it with some real users and get some good feedback that helped the product development going forward, all in about 5 days. So I'm not going to be too prescriptive about what a design sprint is. There's a lot of resources on the internet and things like that, and there are books available. But what I'm going to try to do is that make you experience a design sprint through a problem that we have solved, and let that give you a bit of a flavor of what a design sprint is. Do pop in your questions as and when you have. We will try to take a few during the talk. My friend Anne will try to facilitate that, and in any case, we will definitely pick those towards the end in a fishbowl, where it'd be good to get some of you along with me in a bit of a conversation to see how it goes. So let's get started. So as product managers, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, quite often we have to make some, we grapple with some key questions like, which is the idea or solution that we should be investing in. We have an idea, but we are not too sure, how will users in real life will respond to it, because it's still in the ideation phase. And even when you actually, take all the pains, build the product, that whole product validation, idea validation can sometimes take months. So how can we reduce this feedback loop from months to just a few days? So as I said, I'll try to pick an example where we've used design sprint and see how we can try to answer some of these questions that we grapple with quite often. The challenge that was in front of us was how can we improve remote collaborative software development, and more specifically, due to this COVID situation where everybody is now working from home, the pair programming or software development has also gone remote. So pair programming, where our developers are collaborating on writing a piece of code together, that activity is now happening from home, remotely. It's not meant to be very natural. Earlier, we used to do it on and off. Some developer is working from home, a few days here and there, we have to do it. But now for sustained period of months, we have to now figure out ways to do pair programming, mock programming, remote software development, all from home. And that is not very natural when 2 or 3 or more group of developers are trying to work on the same piece of code in front of them. How frustrating that experience is, maybe some of you know already, or some of you do not. As product managers, if you work with your teams who do pair programming, you may have gotten a bit of an experience. If you are a software developer yourself, you would be going through these challenges yourself. So whatever are your experiences, we would like to know more. So if you can share it in the chat option, that'll be nice for us to see what are the things that you really go through, and how are you circumventing these challenges. But this is how a typical challenge is. Let's say our host Ane was pairing with another developer in our team, Drashti, and Ane starts a remote pairing session when he's working from home. Drashti is working from home. Ane shares his code on the screen and he says, "Well, hey Drashti, can you see my screen?" And Drashti says, "Well, no, not yet. Your screen is still loading." And after a few seconds, he says, "Whoa, I see it now." And then Ane says that, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. What do you think about it? I'm trying to update this method. And Drashti tries to somehow get handle of the code that she's seeing on her screen. And she says that, not the second method, I'm trying to go to this particular line. So if you could go to line number 20 and edit that to so-and-so. Ane is finding it difficult to follow all these instructions in a call, in a screen sharing session. So he gets pretty frustrated. And Drashti also says that, your font size is so small, I really can't see the text on your screen. So can you zoom in? Can you just make your font size slightly better? So not the kind of experience, if you have to do this for day in and day out for months, I'm not sure that is this the kind of experience that you'd like to have. The frustration carries on, and Drashti says, there is not too much sync between what you're saying and what I'm seeing. Maybe the bandwidth is being consumed by the video that we are sharing. So let us stop our videos and let's see if that makes things better. So Drashti stops the video, Ane stops his video, and then Ane said, what, let me just give my screen control to you, because this is not the way in which I want to do a collaborative remote pairing. And Drashti says, okay, that's great. Hopefully this will solve everything. But when she decides to use some shortcuts, Ane is using some different shortcuts. So she's not able to use her shortcuts to refactor code or things like that. And then both of them get super frustrated. And both Ane and Drashti said, what, this is not happening. There have to be better ways to do this. We can't, in this COVID world, we can't just keep on doing remote software development like this. So let's get few developers together. Let's get a product manager in as well. Let's see if we can do that. Ane, do you have any more frustrations to talk about here? What a typical day is?
Many. What I'm interested actually is to know from from our attendees if they must have faced this problem, or people in their team complaining about this problem. If so, do let us know in the chat. We just want to know how real this problem is from you all.
Right. So we looked at, I'll share a little bit, what we found out, what's happening in the rest of the world. But what we decided to do was we decided to really solve it. Okay, so we got a few developers together. We got, me as a product manager or a facilitator of those conversations. And then what we found out was there were lots of ideas. There's endless debate. Let's do this. Let's do that. And building a solution, building a product to solve this problem carries significant investment, right? You can't just create a product and it's your fee. So it has to carry investment. A lot of this is open source. A lot of this is, non-billable work. So it's important that we do this in a way that we get, the maximum return on investment. And there was no obvious solution to our challenge as well. So it was important that we figure out what's the right thing to do and what is the thing that we all will have confidence to be able to move ahead with. So we went ahead and inculcated a bit of product thinking here, and we said that okay, we have all these ideas, but it is very important that we need to reduce the risk of starting something new. Everybody had their hopes, fears. This will work, this will not work, this is a great opportunity. So we wanted a platform where everything can be brought on the table. We wanted to prioritize and find out what is the right candidate to build. And once decided, and this is really, really important, once you decide that you want to build something, the team should be building it with confidence, not with skepticism. That, what, we're building this, but we are not too sure whether the market will accept it, whether this will really work. Will the developers across the world, as I said, this was not just a problem of Equal Experts. Everybody across the world who's doing remote pair programming or mock programming would be going through these challenges. There are conversations as we are talking happening and coming up with solutions that can help solve these problems. And we are one of the teams and companies who are trying to solve it. So it is important that what we decide to build, we build it with confidence. And to do all of this, what we need is that real feedback from real people very, very quickly. Okay, so these were the the pillars or the ideation based on which we decided to move ahead, and that is why a design sprint was very helpful for us. Now, some of you may have experience with design sprints earlier. Some of you, for some of you, it might be a new thing. So as I said, I'll try not to be too prescriptive, but the challenge that I've spoken to you about, I'll use that challenge to tell you how we use design sprint to come up with a product, to come up with a solution that can really solve this problem. Okay. We go along, and a design sprint has been designed at Google Ventures by their, a very senior designer, Jake Knapp. And it's a 5-day process for validating new ideas through prototyping and testing these ideas with customers. There are some changes happening to design sprints as well. It's started to become 4 days now, but I'll stick to the original one, which is for 5 days. That's the one that we tried and got success with. And the 3 main things because of which we really decided to use design sprint was because it helps in accelerating the decision making and thereby reducing risk. It helps in building a friendly and a creative atmosphere to build a prototype and then test it with real users. And then we are also able to, with the outcome, convince investors, convince the people who are going to fund this development that, yes, this is the right thing to build. This will not only solve the problem for us as Equal Experts, but, probably development community across the spectrum, and avoid developing unnecessary features due to the validation that we will receive, and thereby you're maximizing some return on investment. So that's the reason we decided to pick it up. Great. So yes, we've decided to run a design sprint. That's wonderful. What's next? What's the next thing that we should be doing? So I really like this scene from Deadpool 2, where Deadpool is building his team to fight Cable, if I got that right, and he's trying to get some people who can really bring different kind of synergies, energies onto the table. So let's watch this for a couple of minutes just to see where I'm going to take this thought to. Hopefully the audio is clear.
Terrific. You're all terrific. Beats Bedlam. Cool name. Superpowers?
I can distort electrical fields, including the one inside your brain, causing anxiety, confusion, pain.
So basically, you're Dave Matthews. We can use him. Zeitgeist. Cool. I like it. So you have the power to put your finger on the pulse of society?
No, I spit acidic vomit.
Oh.
Do you want me to demonstrate?
No,
yeah, we'll
thank you.
Word for it.
Yeah, listen, we've all eaten at Arby's. Okay. This is the Vanisher. But Vanisher!
We need one on the team also.
Right? He's not here, is he?
He may be running late. My name's Rusty, but I go by Shatterstar.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah, Rusty is
Definitely.
terrible. So, where are you from?
The planet Mojo World.
So you're an alien, I guess. How does that help us?
I'm basically better than you at everything.
I just want someone to find a planet of people that are worse than me at everything. A whole bunch of functional idiots. I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna be their Superman.
Isn't that Canada?
You shut your
Cool. So I've stopped right there. Hopefully you get a bit of an idea where I'm trying to take this thought to. Deadpool is trying to build his team. He's trying to get some people who can bring various different kinds of strength and capabilities to his team, and that's something like is what we need as well on the design sprint. So yes, we need a team. We can't do this by just one or two people by themselves. And these are some of the key roles that I just wanted to highlight here. A design sprint typically needs a decider. In a small startup, it could be a founder, it could be the CEO, or in a big company, it could be product manager, or in our case, who was going to lead this whole open source product development was Ane, our host of this talk. So he was a decider. We need somebody who has knowledge of where the money will come in to build this, how the money goes out. Somebody who has knowledge in crafting messages with the market from a marketing perspective, because we'll need that knowledge to be able to build our prototype and market it as well. We need somebody who can bring the customer voice in, so somebody who works closely with the customers. We need the tech capabilities, somebody who knows what is the solution that we can really build from a company perspective, and designers who can help us design a prototype, design a solution. Typically companies and teams, they always tend to have a troublemaker, and I mean troublemaker from a good perspective. Somebody who brings contrary point of views, critical thinking onto the table. We don't want to keep troublemakers out. We want to get the troublemakers in as early as possible, if not for the whole design sprint, at least for the part of it, so that we can actually get those different contrary thinking earlier and can actually make the prototype and make the product even better. Okay. And we'll need a facilitator who has good knowledge of facilitating these 5 days of design sprints. In this particular case, this was me, and that's why I'm sharing a bit of my experience. A typical team would be 5 to 7. Anything less and more could become either difficult to manage if it's more, or might not give you everything that you really need to build the right product if it's less. All right, so you gotta run a design sprint. You've got a team in place. How to do it, where to do it. Thanks to COVID, you just have to do it from your homes. You'll need 5 days. You'll need something like a Zoom, because you'll be in front of a machine for 5 days. Kids, pets, partners, they are welcome to come in occasionally. In our case, as you can see in the picture, it was okay for our children to step in. In the image that on the left-hand side, you see all of us are bald. We called ourselves as Team Shakal. And, but yeah, I mean, more or less, you need to have a bit of fun. It's difficult to be in front of a Zoom or a video camera for 5 days. So we need to have a bit of a break, and tools like Miro, where I'm doing this presentation, or Mural are pretty handy, because things like on Miro, you can do something and you don't need to share your screen. Anybody else who's on Miro can see in real time what you're really doing. It has things like stickies, timers, voting buttons, all other things that you'll need to do this remotely. If you want to know more, I'll be happy to stick around and share my experience, but this is how you can try to do a bit of a remote setup. Okay. I'll move on. Yes, there will be one big goal for each of the day, and I'll get to that as I move further. But more importantly, what do you think is one really important piece that is needed to survive in front of a video camera or a Zoom for 5 days? Put in your comments, but what you really need, I think, is food and drinks. So yes, please get your snacks. If you're a healthy person, get your salad. if you like junk food, get whatever makes you happy, get your coffee, get your tea. On Monday, our target is to build a bit of a map. Just like in a map, you have a starting point, you have an ending point, and you have, these things that are going to happen in between the route, and there could be some obstacles. Think of like in a treasure map, you might just go through various kinds of things. So that's what we want to do, So we've decided that we want to improve this remote collaborative experience for software development. How does that remote pair programming journey begin? Where does it end? What are the problematic areas in between? We want to capture all of that, and that's what we are referring to as the map. We'll move further. So as I said, we had so many ideas. It is important that we figure out what is the long-term goal, right? Everybody has to have one long-term goal that everybody is agreeing with, rather than all these various things that people think is where we want to achieve. So we do a bit of a workshop. So if you're building a new product, if you have a business idea, you might want to think that where do you want to be in 12 months, in 18 months, in 24 months down the line. Because this was an open source initiative, we want to roll it out. And during the time of COVID, we said that, for us, in 6 months' time, we would improve the experience of remote pairing to make it a more natural experience that doesn't need screen sharing and can drastically ease remote collaboration. So this was the long-term goal that we agreed with. Now, in this 5-day sprint, there could be lots of questions that you would like to answer. So be pessimistic, whatever apprehensions, skepticism, risk, questions that you have about your goal, bring it out on the table. Ask any of those questions. Put those comments in a kind of question format, and then we'll do a bit of voting, and then find out the most important questions that you want to get answers to in the sprint. For us, I just picked a few of them. There were more, for instance, that can we build a more dev-friendly web conference tool? Are we really reinventing the wheel, as there are already some softwares out there? Can we do remote pairing with reduced bandwidth? Can the tool support a mob of more than 3 developers? And there were more questions as well. Okay, so how might we? So what I mean by that is, how might we? It sounds like an opportunity, right? It sounds like a positive thing. How might we do this? How might we do that? So any kind of, get all your team together, invite experts from outside of your team. In our case, it could be some senior programmers, senior developers, people who have been in the open source communities, or anybody who has knowledge of how remote collaborative software development works. We invited those people, and we asked everybody questions around the problem, the question around the, their long-term goal, the product vision, things like that. And we converted all those comments into opportunities. How might we? That helped us to compare all those answers, all those comments in a homogeneous way. How might we do this? How might we do that? All that. And we had scores of how might we cards, which we then prioritized. And then we picked up, just a few of them that I just wanted to highlight here. For example, how might we create an experience like a Google Doc or a Miro board where the same artifact is being built or collaborated by multiple people without doing screen sharing? How might we ensure we are not creating something that is already out there? How might we ensure that pairing is a means to an end and not over-engineering the tool selection? So there are all these various points and comments that people had. We converted everything to how might we. We looked at everything, found out the important ones. And then we come to the final activity of the first day, which is called the note and map. Now, as I said, our map has a starting and has an ending. So everybody created their own map on how does the pair programming experience really begin? Where does it end? What are the problematic areas in between? We got all our thoughts together and created, one common map that we all agreed with. In which case there is on left-hand side, there are these various actors. In our case, it's a developer or the driver of the software code, the collaborator, which is the navigator from a pair programming perspective, and a new member. It could be a new from a mob programming perspective, it could be just one more person who wants to join and do remote collaborative software development. So the journey begins with somebody wants to pair, and there are all these steps in between that go through when a person wants to pair. The developer would be installing the app, setting up a conference call, inviting other people to the conference call, at some point of time sharing his or her screen, does the software development activity, takes feedback through screen sharing, commits the code, pushes the code, in which case, the collaborator comes in. The collaborator is also continuously giving feedback throughout the experience, while the screen is being shared. Towards the end, he or she would pull the code, and then there would be a bit of a role reversal where the collaborator becomes the driver and the original developer would become the navigator or the collaborator. We identified, what are the various problematic areas. This was one of the biggest one, and we put how might we cards at various, the most important voted ones to see which are the problematic areas that we would like to improve. For example, in screen sharing, we want to improve. We want to create an experience like a Google Doc or a Miro board, so that people without screen sharing can collaborate. How might we make the experience responsive to the speed of our thoughts? How might we make the experience? How might we pair with reduced use of headsets? So whatever were the how might we opportunities, we put it on the map. And towards the end of day one, there was a map that we all agreed with that had the problem clearly identified and that had some how might we opportunities clearly laid out on the table on how can we improve this overall experience. Okay. Yep. So end of day one, we've got our map ready. Day two begins. Let's not forget the food and drinks. And by the way, I really liked how some inclusiveness, if people can think what this is, I was able to find some emojis or these icons of samosas. Good to see these Indian dishes also coming onto these diagram selections or these emoji selections. But day two is the activity when day two when the main activity is of sketching your solutions. A picture says 1,000 words, but I think a picture clubbed with some words has the potential to say even more words. And that is what we wanted to achieve at the end of day two. It was a drawing day, and it began with a bit of a lightning demo. So what we do in a lightning demo is we ask everybody in the team to see what is already out there, see what are some existing alternatives, see what are the things that inspire people, and bring all those things to the table. Do 3-minute lightning videos to the rest of the team, and the rest of the team make some notes on what are the things that they liked in those demos, what are the things that they did not like, what are the things to be able to ensure that we are not making the same mistakes. And then we captured all of those things as an outcome of these 3-minute lightning demos that various team members did. I captured some of the screenshots that I think were quite nice. And at the end of day two, or the second of the day two, was where the sketching exercise really begins. As I said, I'm not going to be too prescriptive about this. So I'll not go through each and every step, but in a nutshell, go through everything individually. Individually, every team member goes through everything that we have done until now. So look at the long-term goal, look at the sprint questions, look at all the how might we's we have, look at all the map that we've created, the lightning demos that we did. And based on all of that, come up with your shortlisted solution, converting it to one solution sketch, which is your main proposed solution broken down into 3 steps. And that would be the outcome that each and every team member is creating individually. So towards the end of day 2, everybody has created a sketch of their proposed solution. And I requested them to email those sketches to me. So at the end of day 2, in my inbox, I have a bunch of solution sketches from everybody who's taking part in the design sprint. Okay, so bear in mind, nobody knows who has done what. Only it's me as a facilitator who actually got an idea because I got emails from everybody. Wednesday begins. It's the day to actually now decide what are we really going to implement, what will be our solution. Okay, so it's the day of deciding. It begins with something that the book calls an art museum, the design sprint books, and because we're doing it virtually, so I kind of tagged it with the word virtual, like a virtual art museum. And this is the day where, just like how you go to an art museum, you have all those paintings in front of you. People can come, look at these paintings for a long period of time, gaze at that art, make some mental notes, make some physical notes. Likewise, what I did was I put all those sketches on the Miro board. I said, "Hey guys, come take a look at each and every sketch, and do something like a make notes, put some stickies of the comments that you have, the ideas that you like, put these green colored dots there." So it ends up creating a bit of a heat map, so we know what are the ideas that people are liking. We do a bit of voting, that people, that the team members have liked the idea. The decider also casts his or her super vote, and basically at the at this end of this voting, or at the end of this whole art museum discussions, what we come through is with some solutions that we as a team have agreed, that have been voted very highly, that have been super voted by the decider. Like in this case, this was really nice and fun because uh, as you can see, this is one of the solution sketches that somebody came up with, Rajesh, and his solution was called Pearl. So everybody gives a title to each of their solutions. And in this one, as you can see, within the IDE, so within the IDE where the developers are writing their code, there is an opportunity to see the developers who are collaborating. So you don't need something like a Zoom, you don't need any other video conferencing tool. And you see all those collaborators right in front of you. And so with the color coding, you can see that, which developer is doing what. And you still have an option to share your screen if that's really required. You can actually push the code. You can do, a Git handover directly within the IDE. You can invite more people from the IDE. And there were various other solutions in the sketches as well. Okay. So basically this gave us an opportunity to people to present their solutions in sketch format, and you're able to capture the things that were liked by most people. Anything that you'd like to add, Ane? You were a part of this as well, from this image perspective.
Yes. So apart from all the technical terms out, right, what Munish was talking about is people were suggesting what can we make better, or how we can make the developers' development experience as seamless as possible, as natural as possible, while being remote. So that's the goal we were trying to achieve over here. And those are just technical terms, because this was more like a dev-related product. But the core feature was that, like, the developers, if they are sitting remotely, if the team is working remotely, they should be able to work naturally. That was the prime goal, and accordingly these features were coming into picture. I would just like to add one more thing. Do let us know if you feel we are going too fast, if you like to know something more, if something was not clear enough. Do let us know in the chat or in the questions, and that would be helpful. Thank you. Go ahead, Manish.
Cool. So yeah, and then once we have a list of these solution sketches that have been prioritized, and people know what as a team we really want to build, we created a bit of a storyboard. And as you know, storyboard is like a series of small images, like a comic book strip put together in how a story will function. Likewise, we put all our solution that we decided that we'll go ahead in how a user will start to experience it, what the developer would go through step by step, from a beginning to an end, with the solution actually embedded in the storyboard. So that's how we decided to go ahead with. I'll move further. All right, so great. So we've decided what we really want to do. We come to Thursday, which is the day of building the prototype. And the difference that you can probably see here, there are lots more food on the table and lots more drinks, because this day ended up to become quite long for us. I was able to find a nice emoji of these idlis as well, by the way. But yeah, this day did a baby quite long for us, and the reason it became long was there were a lot of ideas that got prioritized that the team wanted to test. Things like collaborative remote real-time code development, live suggestions, Git handover, video conferencing, stopping the incoming video, showing keyboard shortcuts, and screen sharing features. By the way, there were a lot more as well that were flushed out. But in spite of that, there was a good number of features that the team really wanted to test. And actually, we were all in a bit of a bother because we said, how can we really, within a day, try to build a prototype that allows us to test all of these features together. So we were all thinking how to really go about it. Some of the developers were saying, can this really be done in a week's time? Let alone this can be done in a day. So by the way, but we still managed to do it in a day. And let me show it to you how we were able to achieve it. So we created a bit of a video of the prototype, and where a bunch of developers are collaborating together, and they are using the product that we have built that we called as Pearl. And all these features, this real-time code development, live suggestions, video conferencing, all were integrated in that prototype. And we created a video, and we said that, we'll show this video to actual users and we'll see what do they have to say. Okay, so let me show that video to you. If you can just give me a second. I'll not show the whole video, maybe just a couple of minutes for you to get a bit of an idea about how did we build the prototype. Okay, so here it goes, the video that we built.
Our team actually developed a tool or a plugin to VS Code called Pearl. And in this session, we are going to give you a walkthrough or a demo of the tool and what features it has and what benefits it can give. Cool. So first, let's start by installing the extensions. And I go to extensions and I search for the extension called Pearl. And here's the extension that is now available in the market, and I'm going to. So let's wait for the installation to complete. And yes, there we have it. With the installation complete, let me actually now start inviting collaborators. So let me send an invitation.
Hi. Hello,
Hey, Kumar. I can now send it to Rajesh as well. And let's wait for Rajesh to join as well. While Rajesh is joining, you could see that on my screen itself and on my ID itself, I can see where my collaborators are. I can see where their cursors are, what they are trying to do, what they are selecting. So I don't have to literally use the screen share tool. For me, this is my natural interface. Since this is my ID, I can keep my keyboard shortcuts on my end, and each of my collaborators can also keep their keyboard shortcuts on their end. They can also change their theme to or their fonts in their ID panel. Fine. So it's essentially, I'm working on my own IDE, but at the same time, I'm collaborating with others. Right? As you must be seeing, since everybody joined, I also get to see their video on the right-hand side of the screen. And now we can collaborate pretty easily together. As part of this, we could also see what features this plugin offers. Cool.
All right, so I'll try not to show the rest of the features, but I'll just talk a bit about it. As you can saw, Ane, in that video, Ane was installed that plugin. Through that plugin, then he was able to invite people, see their video, and then he goes ahead and tries each of these things within the plugin by itself, without needing anything else. So by the way, as you can imagine, there are so many things that we prototype. I'd really got to give maybe a special treat to somebody who would tell us how did we manage to achieve it in a day. If you can just share your comments in the chat window, that how do you think we would have built a prototype like that Ane was showing. I just showed you a couple of minutes, that would have allowed us to do all of those things. That'd be really nice. So yeah, so many ideas to test, as I showed you, how to really build a prototype in a day. And that is where I think we looked at some of the examples out there. For instance, how Slack did it, and I think Jake Knapp mentioned it in his book, The Sprint, as well. Like they were wanting to test a bot feature, and instead of developing a real bot in a day, somebody just joined the Slack channel, acting as a bot, trying to be maybe semi-intelligent and trying to respond how a bot typically would do, and see how do people like it. Do the people like responding to a bot? Do people like the kind of answers that the bot was sending? Or people did not like it at all? So they were able to test how a bot function will work by not actually building a bot, but actually imitating, somebody is imitating like a bot. So the key is here to build a facade, build it just enough to learn, only spend the amount that allows you to build a prototype very, very quickly. But the key thing is that the prototype must appear real. In our case, how we did it is thanks to Hit Film Express and some great video editing by our team. We were able to implement all those features as if they are happening in real time. Like the video is within the IDE, you're actually inviting people from the IDE, and you're doing a remote collaborative development. But all of those things were actually a facade. None of those things were happening in real time, and we were able to manage all of these things very interestingly by just through some video editing and building a facade that allows people to do it. Okay. All right, so we've done that. We got a prototype ready. Now, the final day of the sprint, it all boils down to popcorn and cola at the end of the day. The reason I say that is because we are going to test it with some real people. And even though there'll be one interviewer who will test it, but the rest of the team will be seeing the whole experience in real time. So we put a camera where the rest of the team can see the feed as well. And for them, it's like a movie. They all get an opportunity to make some notes. They all get an opportunity to write about what's going well, what's going bad. And we created a bit of a scoreboard as well. So where the interviewer is testing all these ideas and the rest of the team is scoring, how did the interviewees or the real people, the real customers, the real users of the product will respond. So we got these real customers. The roles were people from the UK, from India, basically people who will be potential users of this product, and we tried to experiment the product with them to get real feedback. Now, as you can see, this is how it was. Something like, I changed the names just to maintain privacy, and we put all those questions here. And then based on how people were responding or how the testers were responding, our team scored each of those ideas. And at the end of the day, we were left with these key ideas, some of the key ideas that people really, really liked or really did not like. And towards the end, starting with a list of things that we wanted to test, we knew what are the real, the list of features that I showed you earlier. What are the features that the customers really appreciated? And by the way, the interesting part is when we showed the video to the customers, none of them really felt that this is not happening. Thanks to some great video editing that we did, because had they thought that this is not a real thing, they wouldn't have given real candid feedback. And because all of them said this is real product, real mob, a group of developers doing mob programming in real time, they were able to see that video and share a bit of their experience. All right, so we know now what are the features that we really want to build in this product. And we're coming to the end of the design sprint. As I spoke earlier, before the design sprint, there were too many ideas, lots of starting points. We had a blurry end that this is what we really want to do, but overall there is a lack of alignment. After the sprint, we all knew exactly what we wanted to achieve. And now we can actually build those features with confidence. We could think beyond our limited ideas and actually work collaboratively. We validated ideas to build something that can make lives of developers better in a remote setup. And as I said, months of effort that would go in building unnecessary features and making those features go through the feedback loop, we could condense all of that in a few days, get them quickly tested, get useful feedback to maximize, the return on investment. So these are some of my final thoughts of the takeaways that we had from the design sprint. Towards the end, I wanted to leave you with something, but before that, I wanted to show this book to you. And there are books like these that are available. This one says Healthy Weight Loss, Burn Fat in 21 Days. Now, if I go ahead and buy this book and I read this book, will it really help me to burn my fat in 21 days? The message that I really want to, that I want to leave here is that I'm just going to make a book recommendation. It's one of the best books that I've really read. It's the book that has guided me to run sprints like these. But it is, unless you practice what is there in the book, a lot of time we see Slack has done this, Facebook has done this, they have done that, and we all read their experiences and we get inspired. And there's lots of experiences, and this is as I said, one of the best books that you will read. But I highly encourage you to go ahead and practice, experiment a design sprint as well. And that's the theme of my talk, where I want to encourage people to run these design sprints. There will be failures. You may not be able to do it the best in the first go, but you can get this book, read it. It'll give you some great advice and a step-by-step guide, and in a very prescriptive fashion on how you can run and facilitate a design sprint in your organizations. Yeah, that's it from my end. Thank you so much. I hope that was fun and insightful, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or if Ane would like to take us to the fishbowl, we can do that as well. Go ahead, Ane, over to you.
Thanks, Manish. Thanks for this wonderful insight on design sprint. So what we would do next, right, is we would move on to a fishbowl session. And as part of this fishbowl session, we'll be attempting to answer these questions which we have come across. As of now, we have 6 questions with us. And as I read them out, right, do raise your hand if you want to be a part of the panel, if you think you can answer it, if you have any answer around it. This is more like a collaboration than a fixed set of panel. So feel free to just raise the hand, right? Cool. So, hi Rishi.
Yeah, no.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. Nice to have you here. Guys, feel free to raise the hand if you want to be part of the panel, and you'll be pulled into the panel. So, should we start with the questions meanwhile?
Yes, why not?
Okay. So, we have one voted question. It's by Nihar. It says, in your experience, can design sprint work for non-digital problems as well? where it may not be so easy to prototype. Interesting one actually. Who's going to attempt it?
And if you want to take that?
Like I can attempt it because these design sprints, concept and everything we have derived from actual physical world, right? So if you're an automotive company, what you'd start with a prototype first. And I think that's like, because that's how the industry has evolved over the period of time. It's been like 200 years, this industry have been there. Even with the physical product, it works like a charm. And I think there is no harm in trying with the prototypes in the physical world as well. Digital gives you flexibility of scrapping everything, and maybe with low cost materials in physical world, definitely prototyping would help. I think every new product which comes out starts and based on this particular idea. So yeah, I can find some example and share across later.
I can try to attempt it. But yeah, I mean, if there are other people who are interested, please feel free to raise your hands and join the panel. It'll be really nice to get thoughts from other people as well. But I think one of a couple of actually great examples in the book already that I'd like to mention a few of them here. I think there was one example where somebody was trying to build a bot in a hotel who comes and delivers your daily supplies at the door of your room. So let's say you call the reception and you say that, hey, you know what, I would like to have, I forgot my towel, I forgot my toothpaste, and I like to have a towel and a toothpaste be delivered to me. Now, I think hotels keep on getting these calls all the time. And so somebody wanted to try that. Can they actually send a robot? And with a robot who can actually just go knock on the door, and in a robot, a tray will come out, and there'll be some things on there. I don't quite remember exactly how they tried it, because now that, by the way, that idea has been proven to be successful. So they actually build a robot now. That robot starts from the reception, clicks on the elevator, goes to the room and do it. But the thing that they wanted to validate was, will people get shocked if they see something like a robot there? Or how will people really respond? And I think probably how they might have tried is that they actually put a dummy robot that was not really a robot and put it outside a room with just like some things coming out. And when people open it, they just see a robot with those things in place, and they just pick it up and tap on it and probably developed a very basic functionality that could have been implemented in a day. And that's how they kind of, got a bit of a feedback. There was also one more example where in a medical setup, how people are trying to use design sprint. So I'd highly encourage you to go and read that book. There are really lots of examples, but Nihar, to answer your question, yes, totally a design sprint can be used in non-digital things as well. Yeah, that's my take, but yeah, happy to have any more feedback if people have. Yeah.
Hi, hi Manish. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Amit.
Hi. Very excellent concept. And so my question is related to B2B enterprise customers. Okay. Typically, in a B2B setup, you would have a software budget at the start of the year. Okay. They would earmark which comes out from the cost center budget or the innovation budget. Every company has that, and they say that we would do certain sort of things, in this year. At the end of the third or fourth quarter, companies try to identify newer softwares which they need to build. So if it's a security company like Quick Heal, they might want to build a software for mobile, or software for which supports their IoT systems. These are newer decisions for which they want to earmark a budget. that is the time they would want to invest in some of the prototyping to ensure that they earmark and understand the full extent of how the software is going to be delivered or how a product is going to be built. As a company, when we are doing that, how do we ensure that we build or we prototype something which can be pushed into a larger roadmap, A, and then also, and this is a question more from a, would the outcome of such a prototyping allow us to create those long-term budgets as well?
Anybody in the panel wants to answer this question? You can raise your hands, or if Ane, Rishi, go ahead. So I think from my perspective, I'll attempt that. And by the way, Ane, I see hands raised. So if you could please invite those people to the panel. So I'll attempt it. I think from my perspective, the thought process remains quite consistent in terms of and simple, where we would encourage people to come up with putting these ideas in a transparent manner onto the table, and design sprint helps that. Design sprint helps to put all hopes, fears, ideas, everything onto the table. And by getting the right kind of people in the room, where one of them could be the founder of this B2B startup that you mentioned, or it could be the CEO, or it could be the product manager, we could have really meaningful discussions and align on the long-term goal and align on the sprint questions, or the real pessimistic skepticism and apprehensions that people have based on these ideas. I think it's the foundation, if that is put right at the beginning. So if everybody together, and design sprint suggests these dot voting techniques without getting into these endless debates. So people just put what they want in terms of their goals, do a bit of dot voting, everybody quickly aligns on long-term goals that people are agreeing with. Of course, you can still have these discussions. Once as a group, we've aligned on a long-term goal, we've put all those sprint questions or apprehensions or skepticism in front of us. So we know that what are the questions that we want to answer from this design sprint and the prototype that we are building. I think that will lead to the foundation of ensuring that you actually end up building what you really want, and get these answers that Amit, you mentioned that, from B2B perspective, the answers that you want to achieve might be very, very different. But as long as you've documented these answers in these sprint questions and create a map, create a journey where these questions are clearly highlighted and that allow you to answer, I think these will help you to get that. Anyway, that's just 2 cents from me.
Yeah, so if budgetary allocation is one of my questions, then probably the design sprint would help me to attempt to answer that in a very, and leave less to guesswork.
Right.
Cool. So I hope that was a good answer. Moving next.
Thank you so much.
Interesting. So this question comes from Sagar. Usually higher management people are busy. Is it always necessary to have all the roles on board? Would anybody like to answer that? Anybody wants to speak on behalf of higher management? There's actually an answer over there as well by Amit. Thanks, Amit, for your answer. I would just read it out here. The author of Sprint suggests that one person should be designated by the CEO or higher management who could work as a decider. Yes, that's true. So I'm just attempting my answer over here. Yes, the person who's a decider should be the one who's given some sort of authority to decide. This is not just a person who's there trying to act as if he's playing that role, but he's actually he should actually be in a position to take a decision. The decision has to be taken there. Right? If you need to decide, if there is a conflict between two suggestions or two prototypes, he has to decide which one you can go for. So he has to be a decider, that's right.
So, yeah, I can try to attempt it. But yeah, if there are other people who like to join the panel, please raise your hand so that we can get you in. I think more or less what Amit has suggested, and you know, it is true that higher management is usually busy, so you may not get the decider for the whole duration as well. It is possible, definitely possible. So, but at least for the key things, you know, aligning on the long-term goal, getting those that map chalked out. So ensuring the problem statement and the question that you want to answer have the decider's involvement, in which case it's the higher management. And while you sketch the solution and you're voting on the solution, so deciding on which the solution to build, there is something called as a super vote. So the team makes their own straw polls, makes their own voting, but at the end of the day, it's the decider. You know, she or he makes that call. Ultimately, you know, it could be they might be overall business accountable for this product, for this decision. So they will come in and they will make that vote. So I hope I'm able to answer that. For the higher management in these decider roles, you may not be able to get them for the whole duration. It is possible, but do try to get them for a few of these sessions, because without their buy-in or signature, you won't be successful. And I think they should be pretty open to come in for those kind of sessions.
So Munish, can you go to that example and show a super vote? We had a super vote on one of these.
Yeah, sure. So if I zoom out of my board, yeah, so if you see this solution sketches, there are these, you know, the super votes that the decider in our case really said, okay, Pearl is the idea that I want to put my money on. Then somebody actually highlighted the whole idea, highlighted the whole sketch, but it doesn't stop you from highlighting or super voting individual features as well. So live suggestion or this particular feature was also super voted on. So this was another thing that we decided to build. So these super votes, so they can be initial set of voting by the team, and then the decider can do a bit of a super voting later on to say that, you know, this is what I really want to build. Okay. By the way, I see another interesting question in the Q&A, which is, did we really build this in a day? Anna, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure.
Did we really build this whole prototype in a day? The question is from Girish. By the way, I just showed you 2 minutes of it, but it is like a really long video. I'm happy to show that to you after the call, after the meeting, after the webinar. And yeah, it has all these features, and even we were not sure how to build it in a day, but I'll let Anne take it up. Yeah.
So it's what is important to realize, right? It's a design sprint, and what we are really trying to validate is not the code or anything. We are really trying to validate a product idea or the product itself. Are other users going to find it useful? Is it as intuitive as possible? Is there something which confuses people moreover as such? So that is what you have to present. You have to really give that experience to somebody of how the real product is going to look like. And that's what was done over here. It was not coded, it was not developed through a code. What we did over here is we made a video as if a team is functioning. And that video was actually an output of a cinematography direction and some visual effects going around. There wasn't a Git handover feature or something like what you see in the video, or you weren't really installing something. It was all created through visual effects. But whoever saw that video actually felt that was real. And what he did was he actually gave the real valuable feedback. Somebody said, you know, that was one feature which was there. It never made sense to them. A lot of people said that. And it was actually captured in the feedback chart that Munish showed some time back. If Munish can zoom in and can really see what feedback came along. And that was really, really important. So apart from this, right, apart from talking about the features, what it also gives you is it gives you a priority. Which feature would you like to develop first? Right? So it's a prototype that is being developed. It's an experience that is being developed, not the code.
We have B. Deshpande also on the panel. It'll be good if you can also share your feedback.
Yeah, sure.
Hi.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Yeah, I think on this one day of coding, I think the real value here is coming from not developing the feature in the first place, right? If we think about, if we did not get involved into design sprint and did not spend these 5 days, we would have actually, based on the assumptions, gone to develop this feature, which is tough, right? I mean, it takes about minimum 3 to 6 months to come up with anything, and then we go to the market and try to test it out, and we realize, these are the majority of features may not work, or there is a real big competition already, that will not help us to move on with our product. And that's really late. We have invested so much, and now the stakeholder confidence is, got down because we built something which was not really required in the first place. So I really see that value, even though it doesn't matter if it was a video or a real software, but real value is really, getting that feedback and validating that idea, which actually leads to my question. And if I may ask, I added in the comment section.
Yeah.
So I think your users, primary users, were right there with you, and I think that really might have helped you to design that solution. So users who are using it and who are going to create the solution kind of overlapping, but how do we, try to implement this design sprint when we have a different set of business requirements from different domains, and then we try to, implement it within the design sprint? Do we need to take some analysis sprint or some other, add few more days, like before we start into day one? Should we start with day 0 or day -1 to make everyone prep for this design sprint?
I think that's a great question, Bansi.
Sure.
Any feedback from any of you guys? Yeah, go ahead, Rishi, first. I'll share mine in the end.
I think we might end up talking about the same example. So I don't know, but I'll take an attempt about this design sprint. But like, yes, Bansi, I think what we have experienced, like what I have experienced in one of the projects here, and I presented a video, right? A fake video, like which will tell you that this is how it will work. But in one of our case in project, we simply used pen and paper, and we took it to the user. And like, how much time does it take to draw something on paper? Like, it's the thought, right? You take it and you show it to the user, and that's what guides your thought, right? And the very next day, it was a scraper. The scraper was built in a couple of hours. So again, scraper is not a solution, but it's like a very lightweight thing which you can use to validate your idea. And as you say, it went beyond 5 days. So like, just to conceptualize and get to the level of what we should do, it took us some time. But yes, we didn't build anything. Simple pen and paper, simple scraper from the market. Like, it did the job, and that gave us really a big thing as an insight from the customer, right? Yeah, this could work for them. This is what they would want. Because what happens as a product, like while you're working on a product, you think it will make sense, but you don't know if your users are going to think the same about the product or about the concept, if it is a totally new concept for you or for the user. So yeah, from my experience, it might get beyond 5 days, but I think it's really important. It puts your thought together. It's like back in the days, we used to write a code on a paper, right? Before putting in the machine. That's a thought process you have to go through, you think through, and then most of the time the code works. So like, yeah.
I'd also like to answer this, Bansi. I think you raised a great question in terms of tester recruitment, right? Like that, hiring those people who will actually test your application. And business ideas, they are usually not that easy. And actually, I should have included it in my talk. My apologies to be able to skip that topic. But typically at the end of, there is, yes, totally, there has to be a and actually Jake Knapp covers it very nicely in his book. There is a separate section to cover this. So there are really nice techniques where you can try to find there are some intelligent ways to be able to get users or get testers. You need to start these activities in parallel. So at the end of day 2, at the end of day 3, you need to have a bit of an advertisement out. There are these various mediums, like if you're doing it in the US, you can put it on Craigslist, or depending upon where your target market is and what are the resources those people really use. If it's a dev-centric product, you can go to Stack Overflow. So it really depends upon, where your target users are. Put a bit of an ad there, $100 Amazon voucher, no questions asked, come and help us in, testing. You would typically get a lot of people who will be ready to test. So maybe day 2, day 3, start to build a bit of your ad, publish it. By the end of day 3 or sometime in day 4, we do need to have people who are ready to come and be available for a testing. So yeah, totally valid question. But yeah, there are these nice, simple ways for you to be able to achieve it and get the job done.
So I'll also say one thing about that is, so this is about actually figuring out what we need to get out as a product. But there has to be one exercise before this, which is to really, really identify who the users are, right? Who can represent those users? That's really, really important to basically start with any sort of product development exercise, right? So design sprint is just one way about it. Now that limit, right, that hard limit of getting the prototype done in a day, that might sometimes feel a bit harsh, but there is a reason behind it. So if you don't limit it, right, you can essentially get yourself into an analysis paralysis kind of flow. So you will keep doing something, you'll try to make it better, and not really take anything out to the user soon enough, right? Just losing the feedback and doing something which does not directly add away. So forcing you to limit yourself to a day also forces the team to think creatively to get just something out, just to get the feedback.
Absolutely.
The word is the feedback is an important part, right? It's about thinking creatively just to get the feedback, right? Not get into a nitty-gritty of writing a code, finding out libraries or something like that. Yes, let's do that while the development starts, right? But get the feedback first. So hope that was a good answer. And thanks for the panel as well for answering it. We have another question and something that even I generally think a lot about. Did you have some suggestion from experience regarding resolving conflicts? Rishi, Bansi, or anybody in the audience?
Resolving conflicts between the list of features. Not sure if I get that question right.
List of features or list of different prototypes. That's what you do, right? As part of design sprints, generally everybody comes with their own prototypes. So what if there is a conflict? What if team feels this is also?
Yeah, I think in general I like that concept of super voting and collaboratively trying to get it together rather than getting into long discussions and try to validate each and every feature together. I think we are limited by the time, and rightly so, as you mentioned, Anay. And I think just by putting the vote right away without a lot of explanation, as long as we are clear about the feature. I mean, everyone should be clear about what we are trying to do. And I hope within first 2 days, it's very clear. I think just point voting really helps, in my opinion. Unless you have actually, you have gone through that experience. So probably, Munish, you're better positioned to answer that.
Cool. So in the interest of time, should we move ahead? Again, another question from Niyar. Did you do anything different since this was remote? Example, having everyone do remote individual sketches, or would you do one together if present in a room? I can start attempting an answer, but again, to the panel. Yes, I think the design sprint itself talks that everybody should do their own sketches. It's not about being remote or being together. Even if they are together, they would do their own sketches, right? And then the sketches will be presented, and people would need to understand the meaning of those sketches on their own. Munish, Bansi?
So did we do anything different since this was remote? I think the concept stayed the same, but yeah, I mean, different was be in front of Zoom, as I said, the whole day. But yeah, I think the kind of conversations, I'm not too sure if we really got limited by the infrastructure. I think the tools and software really helped us. Tools like Miro, where everybody is doing things collaboratively. There are timers there. There are options to do speed voting, dot voting. And yeah, I think it's difficult for me to be able to really pick out anything from an outcome perspective that we were not able to achieve just because we were doing it remotely. But I just feel the fun aspect sometimes the human, the intangible benefit of just doing things together, being in that room, having more fun, eating things together, having a lunch together. I think those are some of the things that I would say we missed out on. But yeah, I mean, yes, things were different because everything was just in front of a screen and a virtual endless board that can run for kilometers, like a Miro board. You can just keep on putting everything on it and it'll never end. But so not too much difference from an outcome perspective, but yes, the way we implemented it and the whole camaraderie definitely is much better if COVID goes away and if we can do this together.
I think we probably wouldn't have done those family and kids picture and team shakal thing together, right? So it was fun. It helped us stay motivated. Probably you can try it out as well.
You can eat together, get junk food together, make a healthy day. Yeah, I mean there are various things to make it fun. So yeah, definitely encourage you to try that out there.
Anay, is the product out? Like, can people use it now?
Yeah, I'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
I have that
question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think we should definitely try to answer that.
Yes,
I have a follow-up question on that. I mean, the previous one. Can I?
Yeah, please go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
We understand that COVID actually forced us to do certain things in certain fixed way. But can we take some lessons from there, and when we go back to the offices, we try to do the same? One of the thought, right? COVID actually, kind of we came up with our own sketches and own ideas. If we were doing in an office in one single day, we probably could have been in the same room trying to do it together and on a whiteboard. Great value, but I still see some value, independent doing it, so that I don't get influenced with others' ideas and then I have my own ideas first. So I clearly see there is a trade-off, and in certain way we did it, and probably we can take it back. But do we have any other experiences or ideas that you would certainly want to get back, take back when you're in office?
Well, that's a good thought actually. But in the interest of time, I'll just move on. We have just 2 questions to go with. In validation phase, selecting the list of validators, what parameters need to be considered? Anybody in the audience or Rishi?
I think in terms of like how much of an impact that particular feature would do, like you can end up building, or like you can you'll end up choosing something which you think would be interesting, right? But you need to take a collective opinion about like what an impact it would have for a particular product, and will people use it? Because like you can always start with bells and whistles, but you might, and it might sound fancy, and you might think that this will solve users problem, but it's a very difficult thing, because you are together, you are thinking from your limited view of the way the users are going to use the product. For the validation, I think you need to hear the voice, and you need to look at how much of an impact it would have to start your product, and let the user start using that particular product.
Thanks, Rishi. Again, sorry, I have to rush with the questions. So Pratik, thanks for this question. How do you run design sprint for enterprise API products where the end user is in the control of the client or partners?
I don't know, man. Like, and I can answer this. Hey, Pratik. Hi.
Amit, would you like to answer?
No, well, I can attempt. I think having a representative from customer or from partner is essential in some of the design sprints. If you do not have a customer, then having a quasi-customer representative or someone taking up on the role of a customer representative is important to have in a design sprint rather than doing it in oblivion. That I think could help.
Right. So there is this just one question I'll quickly answer. A basic question may be dumb, like no question is dumb, Amit. Could this approach be used for any scenario type of product, or in which scenario this might not work? I think this is design sprint, right? Is more about deciding on an idea, agreeing to an idea along with the team, but not just developer team, by the way, like product team, including customers, and figuring out whether whatever features you are talking about, right? Do they really make sense to the user? There's a saying which says, take the product out to the user, and if they struggle to find it, that's a bell. Like it should ring a bell. That's a smell. It should be as intuitive to the users as possible, and that's what it generally talks about. Do something quickly enough. Take it in front of the user. See what they feel about it. Do they appreciate the idea? It's not about coding and developing the product. It's about finding out whether the users see any value in it or not. Right? You just can go and do it later. But in that sense, right, all product, right, at the end of the day, essentially talks about the value. When it talks about a value, you can somehow find a way to test that value, right? Otherwise, you might be setting up yourself for a failure. So
I also try to attempt this, and I think this is a great question, by the way. I wouldn't say this is I think this is a very good question in terms of when not to use a sprint as well, right? I mean, we've spoken about when to use a sprint. I think we should also talk a bit about when not to use it. So I think if it is for me, then I think there are a few areas where a sprint may be either an over-engineering thing when the problem is like way too small. Like if there is something, problems also, like design sprint, as I said, when problems are big, you want to put a bit of a money, you're not sure where to really go. You want quick validation. So there are lots of ideas, lots of solutions, and the problem and the return on investment is really, really important. So you wouldn't want to do this for a very small thing or something that is just, just a feature that has to be built in just to add on to a product, things like that. Another area where I think it's not really might be successful is when you don't have a clear understanding on the problem by itself. Like in our case, the problem was very, very clear. Or if if you're trying to build a product, you're trying to solve a particular problem, right? What is that problem? If you're very clear on what the problem is, the design sprint will help you to figure out the right solution to be built it. But if you're still grappling with what is the problem, you may need a bit of user research to first solidify your problem, and then to be able to do it. And I think Bansi also asked a good had a comment early on in terms of users, right? The design sprint will not work if you don't have people whom you can test it with. You've created all these prototypes, but if you don't have real users who can validate your product, then again, whatever you've done then will be highly suboptimal. So I think, there could be more as well, but these are something at the top of my head that I think where you may not need a design sprint.
So I had a question, and Munish, maybe taking your thoughts together. So let's say you have a design sprint and you time box it. What if you do not achieve the answers in that time box? And Munish, you've got some great experience on design sprints. And Rishikesh, and how do you think, would it make sense to extend the design sprint at that point? Or and if you extend it, do you say, what typically would be the point when you say, enough, these are the results which we have identified, and let's not extend the design sprint further?
I think I'm still in my process of learning, so I wouldn't call myself as a design sprint expert. So I'm definitely happy
You're being modest.
happy to hear other people's thoughts on that as well. But I think what I feel is that from my experience, from what I have tried, there's this constraints, right? And Ane was also mentioning these as well. It's just that these constraints have helped us to achieve it in the designated time. Rishi was also giving some examples where you wouldn't just call it a design sprint by itself, but I would simply call it design thinking. I think design sprint is just an extension of design thinking, where you're just building prototypes and getting them tested. And Rishi mentioned some great examples where through, even like some paper prototypes or the prototype that don't even look real, you may even try to get validation. So in the first slide of my talk, I said design sprint could be one of the ways for you to be able to get validation in 5 days, from idea to validation in about 5 days. It may not be the only tool. There could be other tools as well. But at least in my experience, whenever we have decided to go in this route, we have been, because there are so hard constraints and there is a nice format that we have come through, we've gotten success. Yeah.
So I'd like to add one more thing. Like, I just have an example for this. Okay, we do talk about these methods and techniques and tools, right? But sometimes the human element plays a very big role. So I'll tell you about Finger Nature, right? When we started working on, like, we had it was not a design sprint per se, but like we did not achieve the intended output at a very first workshops which we were looking at. And that happens because of various reasons. Like, if you look at a precise problem that remote programming, you need to solve that problem, like it's pretty easy. But like, if you go to enterprise level, where everybody's involved, from sales to every editors and doctors and engineers and everybody, like sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it takes you to become a team one, it takes time. And when you go in the room and you talk about these things, sometimes you discover the problem you intended to solve, that was not a problem. Like, you want to solve something else. Like, this might happen. So you have to set up for both things, like outcome and failure as a learning. And then if you don't achieve that particular outcome, you have to reattempt it again. It's not like that if you're not able to yield that outcome in that specific time, so you can't give up on that, because like you have gone from 0 to 1 and now you have to try it again. So that's my 2 cents on these particular trying the prototype and flavors of design sprints.
Making sense.
Thanks, Rishi. It's already we are already half an hour more than what our actual time was. But this is probably where we'll need to stop it. So, but that doesn't mean the discussion on the design sprint stops. We would, as Munish said, just listening to the talk does not help you to go and really try it out. Design sprint is actually made up of a lot of small individual steps. You may not do the whole thing, but you may actually take some clues from it and just one part of it. Like, you may plan to do your next prototype in 1 day and get the feedback and see how it goes. And we definitely like to do a workshop around this. It may not be definitely a 2-hour workshop, maybe like 4-hour workshop. We have just not yet planned for the day, but let me share my screen. In order to know when we are planning it, don't forget to follow us on Twitter. You can follow us individually. You can follow Munish, myself, Sagar, Shilpa, who are part of the Expert Talks team in Pune. And also we have a meetup link, which is meetup.com/experttalkspune. Do join us over there. We will be sending regular updates on what we are planning next. So you can quickly get it and sign up for the next session or workshop whenever we are planning it. With that, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks Munish for organizing this. Thanks Shilpa and Sagar for making sure that we can for marketing and planning out this whole session. And thanks to panelists for volunteering and joining us. And obviously, last but not the least, thanks to everyone who took their time off from this from their weekend on a Saturday and joining us today. Thanks.